Hi, Scrappy friends. Welcome to the Spiegel Mom Scraps YouTube channel. This is Hannah with you, and I am working on a mixed media spread for you today in an art journal. So I hope you have a nice cup of tea or coffee and you can just watch me play. Right now, you are watching me mix a multi-matte medium and some salt to the earth pasties, and then I'm adding just a teeny tiny bit of Acri-tonez Peas Be Mine together. My thought was that I want to collage these on, but I didn't want just the pure matte medium finish because it tends to be really glossy, and that was not really the look that I was wanting for this. um that tends to be, like I said, it's really slick, and or it can be really slick, and I knew that I wanted to do some watercolors on this, or watercoloring type effect with sprays and stuff, so, and some of my own watercolors mixed in. So yeah, so that's what I did. I thought it turned out pretty good. It's this green color, obviously. And I picked that because I thought it would be semi-neutral and you would get, but it also would lend to that, the fall feel. Because this month for one of our themes is to use or to do something that has to do with leaves. So I had cut all of these out actually by hand, believe it or not. And there's a brown paper bags. And then there are also the white papers with the black are just from my stash. I have the those coloring sheets that you color that have like all the little teeny tiny lines. And it had like a semi fall leaf type of design to it. So I wanted to say pattern, but I mean, it is a pattern, but it was a design. So I decided to use those because I thought they would be fun. And I thought that at, like, when I cut them, I didn't think that I was going to do this, but yeah, but I thought that it would look cool to have different colors and stuff. So I don't know, just putting them kind of on top of each other and next to each other. And I don't know. I'm trying not to overthink this and just go, okay, does this look good? How many do I want layered on top of each other? Do I want it on like in the crease? Because this is in an actual art journal. So if you guys follow me at all, you know that I've been playing around quite a bit with mixed media. And actually, as of before this, I didn't even own a technical art journal. I had like a sketchbook that I've used for art journaling, and I've used Best Scrap and Wonders mixed media and watercolor traveler's notebooks as like art journals, which work perfectly and are really fun for if you just want to get into it and you're not really sure. But anyway, so I am using a Jane Davenport art journal, and this is still a smaller one. I think I want to say it's like 6x8 or something, so it's still pretty small, but it's a really good size to just play around in. So now that you've seen me pretty much do all of this, and I'm sorry that this is kind of boring, I decided to actually leave this in because this video is not too long. I mean, it's longer, but I thought that just to see this whole process is kind of nice. So yes, it does take a little while to do this kind of thing because you're gluing it down. So the multi-matte medium is it's like a paste. Well, sort of. You can use it as glue, so it works really well when you're collaging. Now, one of the things that I didn't care for was that it's hard to tell, but it is quite bright in terms of that it's this green, and it felt a little weird. So I thought, well, why don't I just pull out this some Acri-tonez and 3 sheets to the wind. It's a nice white. It's still pretty translucent, so you will still be able to see the grain behind it. But yeah. So this next thing that I'm adding, which pretty much covers up all the Acri-tonez that he did, but whatever, um, is something that I've not used before, and it's called Absorbent Ground. And this basically, it just like basic terms, is it's like gesso, so it's a primer, but it's for watercoloring. So when you have a page or something that you know you're going to do a lot of media on, you can use it, and you can use a lot more layers than what I put on, and get a really nice good barrier so it doesn't soak all in. And I will say that this is, like I said, this is the first time that I've used it, and I really like it. Now, this art journal is a um, watercolor paper. So it's a hot press watercolor paper. And so the stuff that I didn't use the medium on uh, would have been able to take watercolors really well. But as you've seen, I covered it all up. So I really wanted to have something to prime that so that I have a nice surface. Or otherwise, what I'm doing now by adding all these sprays and watercolors, just things wouldn't, they would have just kind of rolled. I don't know. They wouldn't have had the same effect. I think they would have looked a lot different. So I'm really glad that I pulled it out, and I really liked the way that it blended. So it did take, because I'm not using straight up watercolors and I'm using sprays, the shimmer sprays, um, it definitely took quite a bit to start off, but once I started adding layers to layers, and this is the thing about art journaling, and this is the thing about using watercolors when you're art journaling, is that you really have to remember that your colors are going to blend together depending on how you put them on, and that depending on how much water will depend on how bright they are, and depending on what you're actually using. So the color, that red and orange leaf that I'm working on, that maple one, that was actually a I used that red is an actual watercolor. The greens are not. And some of the orange and yellows really weren't. I think that those were my watercolors too. So I had a couple of watercolors in that palette, but most of them were the shimmer sprays. So I will just list off what I used, and then I'll have this in the section below too. But I used Keep Palms Coloringz, which doesn't have any like shimmers to it. Bamboo Leaf, which is a spritz, and that has a little bit in there, a little bit of like shimmer. Egg Noggin, which is a Vibez, which has a lot of shimmer to it, and a little bit of pigment in the liquid. And then I used Hermit the Frog Vibez as well. And I think there was one other color that I can't remember that was part of the Shimmerz sprays. So I mixed the Vibez and the Spritz and the Coloringz. And so here, as you see, and I'm sorry my head is in the way. this is one of those things that sometimes you just got to get your whole body into it. And it's kind of hard to decide what to keep in and what not to when some of what you're doing you can see and some of it you can't. So, but I'm just building on these layers. I'm just adding. It works really well when you do this kind of thing to start with a lighter color and then go darker. Also, sometimes playing with the amount of water that you have on your brush. I'm using a watercolor brush that has water in it, which is nice, but sometimes it's not so nice because it adds a lot more water than you want. So everything is dry. I did use my heat gun on this quite a bit. And now I'm going to add the stencil, and I'm using Texturez and Marigold Digger, and this is a really fun color. It's like an orangey gold color. And this is a brick stencil, like a stone brick, I guess, type of stencil, and that is Tim Holtz. And it's one of the layered ones that you can, so it came in a pack of 3 and you can layer them if you really want. So if I had decided to use like an ink, like the Distress Oxides would have looked really awesome with that. I don't know how well it would have worked with all of the leaves that I did, though it might have looked awesome with that mixed in. But so now I'm just outlining all of my leaves because I really thought that they needed something to help be that contrasting look. And I decided to use a Pitt artist pen, and this is an extra fine. Like, it's so fine. It's smaller than a 0.2. So because it's so fine, I will say it didn't quite write as well as I would have liked it to on the absorbent ground, because those felt tips, just when you're using it on something that's so porous like that, it can really, so I just had to go slow, and I had to basically doodle and sketch really quickly. So I'm also adding some more colors now, as you can see. I went back and added a little bit more, like some browns from just my regular watercolor palette. I really felt like I needed some more depth in that one big oak leaf that I have. And so but I really like how this turned out. So this next thing that I'm doing is I had added some sapphire spritz, which is like a sapphire is a blue color, which is what you see. And I'm kind of trying to pick it up because it was way too dark. And I didn't mean for it to be that dark, but I just wanted to add a smidge bit of blue. And so I'm kind of trying to cover it up. So I add a little bit more Acri-tonez to add some more white. And then I am going to go back and use some eggnog in that's a vibe, and that's pretty much a gold vibe that has a little bit of color in it. So the vibes have a smidge bit of color to them, where if you were, I don't know if Jody has them, but there's different kinds. So the Spritz is lots of pigment, lots of shimmer. The Coloringz has no shimmer in it. And then the Vibez has a little bit of pigment and a lot of shimmer. So they're a lot lighter, but they're still fun. They're still really fun. So yeah, so I added the gold to the side. It kind of gives it more of that fall feel. So I added some more color into it. And now I'm adding some stamps because it needs something else. I'm not sure what else it needs. So I found some old Pink Fresh Studio stamps that I had in my stash, and they have to do with floating and drifting and free and air, and so I use those. It was from when Pink Fresh Studio was doing their embellishment kits and stuff. So there were these X's, which I've used before on different things, and it just made this really nice and fun. And that bigger stamp says drifting and floating, and then there's going to be a smaller one that I use that says wild and free. So I just kind of put them around a little bit. I tried not to use too many of the words because it's kind of confusing. And yeah. So I kind of did some little like shadowing. Is that what it is, right? When you there's hardly any ink on it and you just do like the edges. So I am using a StazOn because this is not, if I add water to it, which hopefully I don't because then my leaves are going somewhere. But if I used water on it, it's not going to go anywhere. But then I also pulled out this Ali Edwards. It's color, and I added an acorn and like a evergreen leaf thingy from that old Scraptastic one. And now I'm just going to kind of highlight around with this white Pitt pen. I should have blended it out a little bit. I think it might have looked a little bit better, but that's okay. And then I found a quote that says, "And all at once summer collapsed into fall." And I'm just going to put these into the leaves. And I didn't like how the felt looked, so I'm using a felt marker pen. And yeah, because I used a lot of watercolor, basically it just didn't look that great. So I'm gonna go back with the rose gold, and I'm not really sure how I feel about that because it really mixed in with the felt, which was just sitting on it. And so then I go back over it. I try to use the felt and it's not working too well. It's kind of hard to tell, but so I go and I get my black artist Pitt pen, and I'm going to use that. And there's my doggy's nose. So this is pretty much done. And you're going to see close-ups. I hope you join us over in our Facebook group and show us stuff that you're making with your Spiegel Mom Scraps supplies. Make sure you head over to the store if you like any of the products that I used today. I'll have links below, and I will see you guys later. Have a great week. Bye.